Now this is my new album, Volume 3 of the Country Recitations. I wrote the song Dad, and I wrote the song Mom If There Was Just a Way. I also wrote the Canadian Flag, and I have one other one here I wrote, let me just check which one it is. Mom If There Was Just a Way, and One Last Favor for Me, I also wrote that. And I have Volume 1 and I have Volume 2. And I wrote all the songs in Volume 1, I wrote all the songs in Volume 2, which can be seen on my website at www.altrainer.com. And you can see and hear 2 minutes of each of my songs in that same sequence. And if you email me, which is right on my sidebar, if you look at email Al Trainer contract, you can get a hold of me and I'd be sure to send you an album if you want one. And I want to thank you for listening to the songs that I made. This is my latest album, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. And my phone number is 1-905-723-3210, and my webpage is www.altrainer.com. Okay, thank you. As I talk to you today, how life feels so empty now since you've passed away. You're missed at home by everyone, and the love and the kindness that you gave, and your epitaph tells it all on the headstone of your grave. Looking back at the years, Dad, in life for you and me, the hills of green from far away whisper softly, set me free. A warm feeling had me, Dad. I've always wanted to roam, and my mind was always thinking of fond memories of our home. Those green fields that I saw as I left the farm to roam look the same to me as the ones I see as I look back towards our home. My eyes can see a sadness, and there's a sorrow in my heart when I think of all the time we wasted in the years we were apart. Whenever I would get in trouble and when bad times took command, you were always there, Dad, to lend a helping hand. You were always trying to help me, and sometimes you would get sore, when most of the times I would be the cause when shame knocked on your door. Since you passed away, Dad, you're missed dearly every day. I sure miss the help you'd give in a loving father's way. Standing here at your gravesite, looking down at your headstone, wishing I could back up time and never have left our home. Dad, can you hear me, Dad? As I stand at your grave praying, I'm trying to say, I love you, Dad. Can you hear anything I'm saying? Dad, I'm making you a promise. I'll keep for you until the end. I promise to meet you again in heaven. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Over all my burdens, through my fears, Jesus carries me. Through all my trials and through all my tears, Jesus carries me. One night a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene, he noted two set of footprints in the sand. And one belonged to him and the other to the Lord. And when the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at the footprints in the sand and noticed that many times along the path of his life, there were only one set of footprints. He also noticed that this seemed to happen at the very lowest and saddest times of his life. This really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that in the most troublesome times in my life, there are only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I need you most, you would leave me. And the Lord replied, oh, my precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, I did not leave you. It was then that I carried you over burdens and through all my fears. Jesus carries me through all my trials and through all my fears. Jesus carries me. Oh, he carries me across the burning sands, over deep water and wide. He gently takes me by the hand and carries me to the other side. My Jesus carries me. With his help, my life will change, so I can walk by his side. And the next time you see us walk, there'll be two footprints in the sand. Yes, there'll be two footprints in the sand. I had a dream about Mama last night. I could see her in heaven. She read me her Bible like she used to do. Yeah, I had a dream about Mama last night. Mama never used to go to sleep until all of us were in bed. On party nights until we came home, she often sat up and read. We never thought much about it because then we were young and gay, and just how much Mama worried when the children were away. We only knew she never slept when we were out at night. She waited just to know that we all made it home all right. Why, sometimes she stayed awake until 1, 2, or 3, and I'm sure Mama could hear the turning of the key. When we'd step inside, she'd call out and we'd reply. We were all young, and we were all too young to understand just the reason why. But up until the last one had returned, Mama always kept a light. She couldn't go to sleep until she'd kissed us all goodnight. I think Mama had to know that we were safe before she could rest. She seemed to feel the world would harm the one she loved the best. One time she told me, when you're growing up to a woman and to men, I'll sleep the whole night through. It will be different then. And so it seemed that night and day we knew a mother's care. Then always, when we got back home, we'd find her waiting there. Then one night, when we were called together around her bed, the children are all with you now, the kindly doctor said. And in her eyes, there gleamed again that old-time tender light that told that she'd been waiting to know we were all right. She smiled that old familiar smile and prayed for God to keep her children safe from harm throughout the years, and then Mama went to sleep. My dream is a treasure I'll always keep. The night my Mama had her last sleep. We had just finished dinner, and I had just entered the den and closed the door when she walked in and kissed me like she'd done 100 times before. And she said, "Honey, I know it's late. If you don't mind, I'd like to go to the grocery store. My shopping, it's got a little bit behind." Well, I didn't look up. I just nodded okay, and I asked her to please hand me the ashtray. And when she did, she placed her hand on my chest. I squeezed her hand, and then she left. And when she was gone, I shuddered a minute at the thought of my world without her in it. Then I reached with my hand and sought the reassuring touch of my wedding band. Well, I must have been dozing because I didn't hear the door, and I thought that was strange. I'd never done that before. I looked up and she was standing there. She kind of snuck up on me while I slept in the chair. She smiled and nodded. She looked so fair. And I told her she looked like an angel, standing there. And for a long moment, she didn't say a thing. Then she caressed her gold wedding ring. "Honey, you'll never know how much I love you," she said. And I thought of the many years that we'd been wed. And I thought I saw a tear in her eye, and I told her no one could be as happy as I. And then the strangest feeling filled the room. Not one of happiness, but one of gloom. And for the first time in my life, I saw sadness in the face of my wife. And I thought I heard a million voices singing. Then I realized it was just a phone ringing. That That's when I saw the halo surround her golden hair. And I turned towards the receiver, and I heard a cold voice there. The voice softly said, "There's been a wreck on the highway." And I knew when I looked back, she had left me that day. Then I knew why I saw an angel, and the reason why. It was my wife's way of saying our last goodbye. And I knew she could never leave me if she couldn't say goodbye. No, she could never leave me if she couldn't say goodbye. I passed my neighbor's home today. I had some flowers in my hand. These are from my mama's grave. I miss her. She was my best friend. My neighbor said, "I understand, but my mom and I are far apart. We just don't get along." I said, "Try your best to fix that before your mama's gone." I think of my mom and I remember the times Mom would hold me in her arms, and when I wasn't feeling good, talk softly and feed me warm soup. Forget the times I made her mad. Mama always understood. There were times my mom would scold me when I did things to make her mad, but she was always there to hold me if she found me feeling bad. If I could be with Mama for just another day, if I could kneel beside her and listen to her pray, I'd tell her how I miss her and wish she could stay. I'd love to be with Mama if there was just a way. I think of the times I was the cause when shame knocked on her door and she would sit me down and softly say, "Son, that's wrong. Don't do that anymore." And if I did something just to make her happy, she would smile and cook my favorite meal. She would hold me in her arms and tell me, ever so softly, just how good it made her feel. It's a lovely day today, but my mama's gone. She passed away, I'm sorry to say. And I would trade most anything to be with Mama again, if there was just a way. A mother's love is like a blessing you have with you every day. The time you miss her most of all is when she's buried beneath the clay. Mama, I miss you since you passed away, and I hope these flowers I'm bringing you today remind you of how much I love you and add happiness to your heaven stay. Yes, it's a lovely day today, but my mama's gone. She passed away, I'm sorry to say, and I would trade most anything just to be with Mama again, if there was just a way. Yes, I would trade most anything to be with Mama again, if there was just a way. I said, "I want a divorce." I raised the topic calmly. I was sure these words would make her cry. She didn't really seem to be annoyed. Instead, she just softly asked me, when I got home from work today, I wanted her to know. When she saw me, she knew something wasn't right. She was sad and there was hurt in her eyes. As sad as she was, she did not want to fight. I said, "I want a divorce." I raised the topic calmly. I was sure these words would make her cry. She didn't really seem to be annoyed. Instead, she just softly asked me, why? I avoided her questions, and I knew she was angry. I knew she was feeling lost, and she was sad. To her, divorce was out of the question, as 10 years of marriage was all she had had. Now my new love, Debbie, made me feel love again, and my love at home was over, and I wanted her to know I didn't really love her anymore. So divorce for us was the only way to go. So I put together a divorce agreement. I gave her the house, the car, and even gave her our son's custody. She tore it to pieces and she threw it at me. Then she started to cry and she said, please God, don't let it be. The next night I found her, she was writing something. I was tired and I knew it wouldn't be long, I'd be gone. And in the morning she gave me her separation conditions. All she wanted was a month's notice and for me not to tell our son. He had exams in a month's time, and divorce was something he might not understand. She had one more request she wanted from me, and the day we were married, you carried me. I'd like you to do it again. So for the next month, do you think you could carry me to the front door from our bedroom nest? First, I thought she was going crazy, but to save face, I accepted her request. And I told Debbie what she had asked. She thought the conditions were absurd. It's over now. She has to face the fact. But these requests are the worst I've ever heard. And with no body contact since the talk of divorce, and my son clapping as I picked up his mom, with her eyes closed and her arm around my neck, I have one more request. Please don't tell our son. And on the fourth day, as I lifted her up, I felt a strange sense of intimacy. This was the woman who had been my wife, had given me 10 years of her life to me. It became easier to carry her as the months slipped by. Perhaps every day's workout was the main reason why. She was getting so thin and her clothes fit so loose. She was finding it so hard to find the right dress to choose. My son said, Dad, it's time to carry Mom. So I reached down and I picked up my wife. Seeing his dad carry his mom like that had become, as I saw it, a part of his life. Holding her in my arms, I carried her through the sitting room and into the hallway. Her soft arm around my neck, holding me so close, felt so much like our wedding day. And on the last day of our agreement, I could hardly take a step. And standing there holding her, I realized this marriage is not over yet. I drove to Debbie's place and jumped out of the car. Never even stopped to close the car door. I went up to her apartment and said, Debbie, it's over. I don't want a divorce anymore. I said it's over and I won't need you anymore. I realized what I need is my wife's heart. Seeing my son so happy, thinking we were in love, and that we belonged together and until death do we part. Going home, I stopped and bought her fresh flowers. The sales girl asked what to write on the card. I said, write, I love you, I need you, and let's try again. A new life together shouldn't be so hard. I got home with the flowers and I ran upstairs to my wife's bedroom. And there on the bed, my wife lay dead. Full of cancer, she knew she would die soon. All she wanted was to save me from the reaction our son would have if we went on with the plan. At least in the eyes of our son, I'd be his father, her husband, and in his eyes, a great man. Amen. As I walked through a country courthouse square, on a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said to him, "Looks like your old courthouse is kind of run down." And he said, "Nah, it'll do just fine for our little town." I said, "And your old flagpole is leaning just a little bit. And that's a ragged old flag you got hanging on it." And he said, "My friend, have a seat." And I sat down. "Is this the first time you've been to our little town?" And he said, "Now, I don't really like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that ragged old flag. You see, we got a little hole in that ragged old flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware. And it got powder burned the night Francis Scott Key sat watching it writing, 'Oh, say, can you see?' It got a little rip in New Orleans when Packingham and Jackson were tugging it at seams. And it almost fell in the Alamo beside the Texas flag, you know. She got cut with a sword in Chancellorsville, and she was cut again at Shiloh Hill. Now there was Robert E. Lee and Beauregard and Bragg, and the south wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. And in Flanders Field, in World War I, she got a big hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II, and she's hung limp and low a time or two. She was in Korea, Iran, Iraq, and Vietnam. She went wherever she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She waved proud from our ships upon the briny foam, and now they've about quit waving back here at home. And in her own great land where she's been abused, she's been burned, dishonored, denied, and refused. And the government for which she stands has been scandalized throughout the land. Now she's getting threadbare and she's wearing thin, but she's in good shape for the shape she's in. Because she's been through all this before, and I believe she can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning and we bring her down every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her up just right. And on second thought, yeah, I do like to brag, because I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag. Yes, we're all mighty proud of that ragged old flag. I was out in the outskirts of a little country town, trying to reach my destination before the sun went down. The old CB was blaring away on channel 19 when there came a little boy's voice on the radio line. He said, "Breaker 19, is anyone there? Come on back, truckers, and talk to Teddy Bear." Well, I keyed that old mic and I said, "You got it, Teddy Bear." And the little boy's voice came back in the air and, "Appreciate the break. Who we got then that end?" I told him my handle, and then he began. Now, I'm not supposed to bother you fellas out there. Mom says you're busy and for me to stay off the air. But you see, I get lonely and it helps to talk. Because that's about all I can do. Because I'm crippled. I can't walk. I came back and told him to fire up that old mic, and I'd talk to him just as long as he liked. This is my dad's radio, the little boy said, but I guess it's Mom's and mine now, because my daddy's dead. Dad had a wreck about a month ago. He was trying to get back home in the blinding snow. Mom has to work now to make ends meet, and I'm not much help with my 2 crippled feet. She says not to worry, we'll make it all right, but I hear her crying sometimes late at night. You know, there's one thing I want more than anything else to see. I know you guys are too busy to bother with me, but you see, my dad used to take me for rides when he was home. But I guess that's all over now since my daddy's gone. And not one breaker came on the old CB as that little crippled boy talked to me. I tried hard to swallow a lump that just wouldn't stay down, and as I thought about the little boy back in Greenville town. Dad was going to take Mom and me along with him later this year. Why, I remember him saying, someday this truck will be yours, Teddy Bear. But I know I'll never get to ride an 18-wheeler again. But this old base will keep me in touch with all my trucker friends. Teddy Bear's gonna back out here now and leave you alone, because it's about time for Mom to come home. But you give me a shout when you're passing through, and I'll be sure be glad to come back to you. Well, I came back and I said, before you go 1010, what's your 20, little CB friend? Well, he gave me his address, and I didn't once hesitate, because this hot load of freight is just going to have to wait. I turned that truck around on a dime and came right back to Jackson Street, 229. And as I rounded the corner, I got one heck of a shock. 18-wheelers were lined up for 3 city blocks. Why, I guess every driver for miles around had caught Teddy Bear's call, and that little boy was having a ball. As fast as one trucker would carry him in, another would carry him back out to his truck and take off again. Well, you better believe I took my turn at riding Teddy Bear, and I took him back and put him down in his chair. And buddy, if I never live to see happiness again, I want you to know I saw it that day in the face of that little man. We took up a collection for him before his mom got home, and each driver said goodbye, and then they were all gone. And he shook my hand with a mile-long grin and said, "So long, trucker, I'll catch you again." Well, I hit that interstate with tears in my eyes. I turned on the radio and I got another surprise. Breaker 19, came the voice on the air. Just one word of thanks from Mama Teddy Bear. We wish each and every one of you a special prayer, because you just made my little boy's dream come true. I'll sign off now before I start to cry. May God be with you. 10-4, and goodbye. Yes, this country, Canada, was new, and most Canadians can remember back when the flag flown in Canada was the British Union Jack. And from the days of Confederation, so proudly it flew. On Canadian flagpoles, it was red, white, and blue. And all through World War I and yes again through World War II, many brave young Canadians gave their all for the red, white, and blue. And in Flanders fields where the poppies grow, where brave young men lay row on row, they gave their lives, but these brave men knew it was for home and country and the red, white, and blue. But the Canadian people knew Canada was their home, and what they wanted most was a flag of their own. Now they placed a maple leaf on a white background, and the Canadian flag was new. It flew high and proud in Canada, and it replaced the red, white, and blue. Oh, it was a great flag, twice as long as it is wide. Flew first time in Ottawa on February the 15th, 1965. King George V in November 1921 gave Canada red and white in a proclamation, and the French and English had already chosen the maple leaf as the emblem of our nation. It was red and white and very bright, and it fluttered in the Canadian breeze, reminding us all of country is free and of our beautiful maple trees. The flag was born and recognized on February the 15th, 1965. And the only thing about our flag since then is over 100 young men from Canada have died. These young men gave their all, and yes, we Canadians feel so bad that our sons and daughters came back to us covered up in our new flag. And today, high above the Parliament buildings, the Canadian flag flies free, thanks to our young soldiers who died for their country. God bless Canada, and always keep her free. Yes, always keep her free. I was resting one evening by the side of the road when I saw an old farmer in a field he just hoed. His face was brown and wrinkled by the sun and the wind, and he was talking to the Lord just like he would be talking to a friend. "Well, sir," he said, with a voice calm and quiet, "them corn tassels need sacking, and they ain't got no string to tie it. Hadn't rained in so long, the fields are mighty dusty. It's been so unbearably hot that the kids are even getting fussy. Now the grass down in the pasture, it should be knee-high. If we could just have a little shower, Lord, it might keep the cow from going dry." But listen to me talking, Lord. You'd think I wasn't grateful. Why, you'd probably think I was downright hateful. You'd think I forgot about the new calf that you sent, and the money that came in the mail that took care of the rent. Ma's cold is better, and Johnny's home from the Navy. Oh, that good Sunday dinner and chicken and dumplings and gravy. And that new preacher you sent us is sure a fine young man. Why, he's just converting them sinners to beat the band. Well, I guess I'll mosey on home now, Lord. I'll not take no more of your time. I guess there are plenty of folks thereabout waiting to ring your line. Evening to you, Lord, and watch over us tonight. And don't worry about us none, Lord. No, sir. Because everything's just going to be all right. I was traveling the country, just bumming around, when I saw a small country church in a small country town. Oh, I knew I wasn't shaven and my old clothes were not the best. I wanted to spend a little time with the Lord, get a few things off my chest. But just as I entered the church's front door, a well-dressed usher greeted me. He said, "Excuse me, sir, where are you going?" "Obers are not welcome here, don't you see? Is this not the house of the Lord, where men can repent their sins?" "Yes, but it belongs to the town folks, and we're careful of who we let in. Now you're not shaven, and your clothes are all dirty, and you surely would look out of place. And if I let you in looking like that, the town folks would all be disgraced." So I thought a minute, and I asked him, "Didn't Jesus have a beard? Didn't he wear sandals on his feet? Wasn't his robe just a little weird? And didn't he have long hair to go with the beard? And didn't he travel around? Now if it was him, not me, who came to your door, and you knew, would you still turn him down? Do you think when I get to heaven's door, and if I'm still not looking too well, will the Lord let me in or just tell me, 'You're much better dressed for,' well, oh, I knew I didn't really dress very good, and there are a few holes in my shoes. I don't get to eat 3 meals a day like you, and I haven't got much to lose." Did you know that Jesus was also poor, and worldly goods didn't mean much to him? He did the best he could with what he had to teach townsfolk like you not to sin. In the house, we are all welcome to come inside. All he asks is that you follow his word. The lifestyles in this life really don't matter when you enter the house of the Lord. Now, it really don't matter if you're rich or poor. When you get your call on Judgment Day, the rich get the same as the hobos do. We all get 6 feet of clay. Yes, we all get 6 feet of clay. Who'll take care of Grandma? Who will it be? All of us want her. I'm sure you'll agree. Let's call a meeting. Let's gather the clan. Let's get it settled as soon as we can. In such a big family, there's certainly one willing to give her a place in the sun. Strange how we thought that she'd never wear out. But see how she walks. It's arthritis, no doubt. Her eyesight is faded, her memory's dim. She's apt to insist on the silliest whim. When people get older, they become such a care. She must have a home, but the question is where? Remember the days when she used to be spry and she baked her own cookies and made her own pie, helped us with lessons and tended our seams, kissed away troubles and mended our dreams. Wonderful